I've drawn a center line down my blank, and I drew a center line down this back piece and on the tenon itself. So I lined up these marks together and I clamped it to hold it in place, and from here I can actually trace where the mortise is to go in the back of it. It won't move while I'm doing it. You know, this is milled the same thickness as this, so everything's laying perfectly flat. Alright, I backed myself into a corner where I have to try something a little bit risky. I want to make my mortise right here as I've traced off, and the blank is too wide to fit into my drill press or my mortising machine. I don't have a horizontal boring machine, so I've got to figure out a way to make my mortise and have it be accurate enough. My tenon I shot for 3/4 of an inch. I got 0.72 of an inch, so that tells me that with a 3/4 inch spade bit I'm going to have some play. I've learned from Matthias Wandel's website that glue is an excellent filler, that if you slather the glue on a loose tenon that it will hold it in place pretty well, so I'm confident about that. Plus, this isn't going to be holding a huge load. It's going to have 2 braces for the back. So what I decided to try is to put the spade bit in my hand drill, which has a level bubble. I've checked the blank on the table to make sure it's level, and as it turned out I had to shim it up, and that's why it's clamped to the table here. There's a little shim underneath holding it so it's level according to the bubble. And as I'm drilling, I'm going to be watching this bubble, and I'm also going to hold up this square to the side and compare it with the shaft of the spade bit as I go. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, but only because that tenon will be slightly loose, I think I can get away with it. I've piloted the holes on either end so I can start from the correct point precisely, and I got my center line drawn so I can arbitrarily drill along this center line all the way across. The rest I can do with chisels. So I'm hoping this will work out well enough, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, here I go. I'd cross my fingers if I had a free hand. Here's where I discovered that my rusty spade bit wasn't sharp enough to get the job done. Luckily, I had a newer one that was sharp enough. I found while doing this that the vibration of the drill would actually shake the level bubble to where it would kind of get foamy inside the level bubble window, and it was hard to judge how it was, so I'd have to wait a little while, let the bubbles break. In the end, it turned out okay. So my little trick worked. The mortise and tenon fit fine, and I glued up pretty flush, so I'm ready to go and trace my pattern on, which I've actually already done. I had to redo my pattern. The first armless chair that I made, I discovered that the back of the seat will totally shape the back of the comb and the spindles that come up. So you want it a little more flatter than I had it. If it's too curved, it won't fit your back too well. So I redid it, and this seat should turn out a little bit better than the first one, which is the idea of the whole thing. Got it traced out, and we'll go to the bandsaw with it. So now that we have it cut out on the bandsaw, I drew in the sight lines for each one of the holes that we drilled in, the holes for the legs and the spindles for the back and the braces. These straight lines here are for sighting. We're going to make angled holes for each piece that goes in, and I'll show you the device I have that allows you to set it up along those sight lines on your drill press. So sitting on top of the blank is the table that I'm going to use on the drill press for drilling the angled holes into the blank. It's basically just a box with a hinge on it, so I can raise and lower it up at a specific angle. I secure it with a screw once it's at the correct angle. And this sits on the platform of the drill press, and this strip right here is your sight line. Those lines that I drew onto the seat blank line up with that as I drill a hole, and I can get the correct angle. I used to try doing this by angling the platform of the drill press, and it didn't work because the seat blank is big enough that it didn't always fit underneath it. So this thing gives me the working space that I need. Okay, I'm going to set the angle on my table. This little doohickey I got from Harbor Freight. I'm going to zero it on the top of my table. And the first couple holes I'm going to drill are supposed to be at a 17-degree angle, so we'll set it for that. There's 17 right there. And I got a couple of holes drilled to stick nails in to hold it at that angle. So I have my seat set up on the table of my drill press. I have two-sided tape holding the jig onto the table of the drill press, and I have the seat clamped onto it. When I first started doing this, I would try to just hold it in place and drill, and it's real hard. The seat is rather heavy right now. You kind of wrestle with it, getting it lined up perfectly, so you're better off just getting this thing ready to go. Also when you turn the drill on, it often tends to jump, and that'll knock it out of alignment. So you get everything lined up just perfectly, and then you make your cut. Here we go. You repeat that for all the legs and all the spindles. So I got all my holes drilled. I'm not going to drill the holes for the braces and back. Those get done later. I want to enforce this center line right in here because that's going to be a high spot called the pummel. When we're carving it, that's going to be our reference point. I sketched in a margin around like this. I didn't use a form, I sketched it. I guess for my chairs, I don't mind them having kind of a handmade look to them. Also, you can see my line where I traced the pattern, and I'm going to take it on the disc sander and sand it right down to my line so it's nice and smooth. We'll do that.